Yeah, we were in this. Well, this is, no, your board meetings were in the.
Not sure who.
Our board meetings were in there.
Where the boards are almost. So yeah, I don't reckon.
Although the interviews took place in here.
It's.
But your board table was on that side, facing this way. The candidates out here in the, somewhere in the, no, it was over there off to the side in the hot seat.
If I had a wish, I'd have something
Up there.
Sounds like yes.
This meeting of the Board of Education is now called to order. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome. Thanks for coming to the meeting. We're going to start today by approving our agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda as presented? Well, I have two. Want these added at the end of the action items as number 6 and number 7. And the first is to add a resolution in recognition and appreciation of distinguished service by Mark B. Lang. And the second is execution of an employment agreement with our incoming superintendent, Johnny Edwards. Are there any objections to those changes? That's good. Is there a motion, please?
Sure, Mr. President. I move that the Board of Education approve the agenda as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. The agenda is approved, and we'll start by beginning our public hearing on the budget. The 2025 proposed budget will be reviewed, and there will be an opportunity for questions from the audience and the board. Paula and Sammy are here to help us.
Good evening, Board of Education and Superintendent Beeling. Paula and myself are here tonight to present to you the 25-26 preliminary budget. We went over a little bit of this with you 2 weeks ago at the Second Amendment presentation that we did, but we do have a small update. Well, I don't know. We've got a little bit more progress potentially happening at the state level. On your slides or up here, you can see the 3 recommendations that we've received at the state level, all ranging around that hitting around that $10,000 mark. The House was off the week of June 16th for Juneteenth. And there is rumor that very little will happen in Lansing during the month of July due to the beautiful weather that we are having in Michigan. Might be a little hot, but it's still enjoyable. Governor Whitmer, Majority Leader Brinks, and Speaker Hall have met, but the outcome was very clear. What we do know is that they are set to re-adjourn tomorrow, but it's very unlikely that we will see a budget. They could surprise us, but I don't think we are expecting one to come out tomorrow. Both the House and the Senate have days added to their calendar for the month of July, but they're worried about attendance, again, because of the summer. And we also know that Majority Leader Brinks has asked Speaker Hall to present all of the House budgets instead of just the K-12 budget before continuing on with that discussion to kind of see where the rest of the House's budgets sit. And that's very custom at the state level. There is one thing that I'd like to bring to your guys' attention, and that is rumor of the MIPSR's UAL rate reduction that was put into place last year being repealed. So that's something that we'll be watching coming down the pipeline. That was interesting to read the other day. This next one is just a visual of our blended FTE history. You can see here that we've had a slight decline over the past few years, but we are expecting just a small decline of 44 students for 25-26. We will receive enrollment numbers in early to mid-November after the October 1st count day this year.
So as we mentioned 2 weeks ago when we shared with you our assumptions for the preliminary budget for 25-26, we still held with the $392 increase per pupil, so we're budgeting at that $10,000 mark. Really not knowing what the state's going to do for us. It's really at a disadvantage because this current year's received no increase in this current year's foundation allowance for 24-25. So technically, to make us whole, the state really needs to give us a double increase because we're losing that categorical that we had on our state aid status report. So that's why the preliminary budget looks the way that it does right now. As Sammy mentioned, we're budgeting down a little over 44 students. That's a 90% blend from the fall count and a 10% blend from this year's February count. We are a Headley rollback district. The good news is we didn't roll back any further for the 25-26 school year. That calculation is conducted by Kalamazoo County, and it allows us the disadvantage that we cannot levy the full 18 mills on the L4029 form. So that's about $446,000 in tax revenue that we are not collecting as a district. Also included in revenue is our KRESA special ed millage at approximately $7.9 million. Our countywide enhancement millage at approximately $4.2 million. And as we touched on 2 weeks ago, we kept federal funding pretty much stagnant, the same. We do know that Title I is safe for next year, and that's usually around $740,000. But we kept Title II, III, and IV still in the preliminary budget for next year in hopes that that's what we'll still get through Washington, so we'll still have those grants in next school year. But it's just, it's everyone's best guess right now. Sammy had also touched on 2 weeks ago that there's rumor has it that we might be looking at possible block grant structuring for some of the federal funds, so it could get really interesting. And we did keep Medicaid outreach about the same. This next slide just shows you a visual display of our different types of revenue that we do receive as a school district. Our local sources is approximately 20% of our revenue. That's our property taxes, gate receipts from our athletic events, our facility rentals, our special education millage, and our county enhancement millage. State sources is the largest section of the pie. That's our state aid and all the different categoricals that we do receive through the state. Federal sources is the smallest portion of our budget, and it's not even 1%. Incoming transfers consists of the indirect costs that we can charge off to our food service fund and any time that we do sell any school district property.
Moving on to expenses for the general fund, as I had mentioned 2 weeks ago, we did take a new approach on budgeting for retirement this round. We actually looked at every employee, well, the majority of employees and their retirement plans, and budgeted based off of their actual retirement plan cost. It was a very interesting analysis, I will admit that. Others were budgeted at the highest rate, which is 44.93%. There's a really small percentage of the district that was budgeted at that 44.93%, and a lot of those were stipends or coaches where it's hard to say like who and if it's going to be the exact same as this year. Federal funding is down, and a lot of that's due, well, it is due to the COVID funding that ended in September of this past year. To give you guys kind of an idea, in 23-24 we had $4.3 million in federal funding expenses, and this year for 25-26 we're estimated to be like right around 1.2 million. So that's half of what we had spent last year. So there's that cliff that we were talking about and expecting as a district as well. We've built in capital outlay projects. Two of the main projects are office and hallway monitors for entryways at some of the schools, along with surveillance cameras at Central and North Middle School. You will notice on one of your sheets that the CTE program expenses are up, and that's because that program is no longer hosted by KRESA. That is now hosted by us, because they won't be having it at the new CTE center. We'll be bringing it in-house here at Portage. Though that is the accounting and marketing programs at Northern and Central High, and then the woodworking program at Northern. We will be receiving some revenue to help offset that increase. We're just not sure what exactly it looks like because it's been a while since we've had something like that in district.
And it's also been a topic of negotiation under the House proposal as well.
And then, as we had mentioned 2 weeks ago, we have 2 unsettled contracts, well, 1 unsettled contract and then a financial reopener. That unsettled contract is with custodial maintenance, and then a financial opener with the PEA. This is your visual of page 3 of your preliminary packet. We are expecting salaries and benefits to be up about $2.9 million. A lot of that is because we did build in an increase for the majority of the groups and an increase in insurance. There was a slight increase in retirement for some of those plans as well. Debt services is up and actually has a decent sized budget this year, and that is because we are entering a new printer lease for the district, and that GASB 87 requires us to have that as an expense along with a revenue. You'll also, if you look at the amendment in the preliminary, you'll notice that supplies and materials and capital outlay are down about $2.3 million. Again, a lot of that is because of that federal funding that we're no longer have, so the ESSER funding. We're also seeing large projects like the entryway upgrades at the numerous schools, along with the clocks, bells, and paging system upgrades. Those are starting to close out for the year, so we're seeing those, which is that decrease in expenses. This next one is visual of page 1 of your monthly financial report or of the preliminary packet that we provide you. Looking at the amendment to this preliminary budget, there is an increase in instructional expenses, pupil supports, operations and maintenance, transportation, and debt services. Again, that's primarily because of that printer lease. Instructional staff and then school and admin about stayed the same. And then we saw a slight decrease in the business services, central services, athletics, and community services. This next one is your fund balance assumption that we were presenting to you tonight. As I had mentioned 2 weeks ago, we were going to provide you guys with an updated amendment, and those are sitting with you now. We brought to you $125 million in revenue, $126 million in expenses. There's a slight increase in the expenses of about $3,000, probably a little bit more than that, or $300. There's a decent size increase there. And we had presented an $804,000 deficit. That deficit now is appearing to be $889,000. And then we also saw with that larger deficit, we're seeing a small decrease in the fund balance from $27.1 million to $26.2 million. The unassigned then also dropped from 17.03 to 17.03 instead of the 17.11% that we had presented 2 weeks ago. Also on the very far right is the 25-26 preliminary with the about $123 million in revenue, $126 million in expenses, creating a $3.1 million deficit, bringing the fund balance down to $23.1 million. Assigned fund balance is 4.1. That's a lot of that is those 2 committed fundings that we brought to you in 23-24 and then 24-25. And that'll bring our unassigned fund balance down to $19 million, which is 15.08%, still above that 7% that is required from the board policy.
And as we've stated before, these are just estimates. We won't know actuals until we get through the summer, closing the books for Amendment 2 on the general fund for 24-25.
Yep. And so this is just your graph of showing you just kind of how it's going. We were expecting that dip of that 15.08. Like Paula said, we won't be able to confirm that 17.03 or that 15.08 until this November for 1703 when we present the audit, and then next November-ish when we present the 25-26 audit. So as you guys know, we update these slides as we present them to you.
Leaving the general fund, which is the largest budget, and moving on to the building site and sinking fund, you will notice in your packet that you had 2 different resolutions for the building site and sinking fund. One of them is the previous 2019 building site and sinking fund that was approved by the voters. This particular fund will no longer receive tax revenue in the 25-26 school year, but we still have fund balance left in that building site and sinking fund. So that fund will still be continued to be used for approved projects that fit the ballot language for that sinking fund. Back in August of 2024, the community approved our building site and sinking fund to expand the opportunity of how we can spend those funds to include technology, some limited transportation costs, and some limited security-related costs. So now this year, the levy for the building site and sinking fund is going to be 0.4980 mils, which is down just slightly from last year because it's experiencing a Headley rollback as well. And because the fund's just starting up to collect revenue starting July 1, we didn't put a lot of projects in it yet until we can see how much money's actually coming in. So we're gonna plan to buy some Chromebooks with the proceeds from the levy, and then also some additional transportation vans that are needed. And we'll continue to update both of these building site and sinking funds as the year progresses and bring the board back a revision to approve.
Something I just want to mention about those Chromebooks is for the past probably 4 or 5 years, we've been able to purchase those out of ESSER or COVID funding. So being able to move it to the building and site sinking was very beneficial for the general fund, just because we knew this federal funding cliff was going to happen. So that's something that we were able to kind of move from A to B.
Moving on to some of the other funds that were included in your board packet. The food service fund, if you recall, expenditures exceeded revenues, and this is a planned budget this way. We have an excess fund balance. We've been just recently approved from MDE for our second spend down plan. So Susan has planned some great updates throughout the district, such as the Central High and Northern High serving area refresh, installing a generator at West Middle School, so the walk-in cooler, the next time we lose power, Susan won't lose all of the food that's in that cooler. She's also planning to purchase the serving equipment for Central L and Haverhill with these excess funds. That will help relieve some of the pressure on the bond funds. We have taken the assumption that breakfast and lunch will be free for all students next year. 2 out of 3 of the budget proposals have that included, so for me that was greater odds that we'll have it than we won't, but you never know what the state's going to do at the last minute. We will continue to monitor that over the summer and bring anything necessary to the board that we need to have approved over the summer in case meals are not free for next year. Something we haven't had to do for a little while, but we just sit back and patiently wait for the state to come up with their budget. Also included in that school services is the school activities fund and the bookstore fund, and these are pretty volatile funds. They're kind of dynamic, and you can't really get a good handle on what happens in these funds until we get more so into the year. So it is a true best guess to come up with a budget for them for next year until you actually see what goes on in those funds as far as activity. But those were included in your packet. And then finally, our debt retirement fund. This fund also had planned expenditures over revenues. You can only hold a certain amount in your debt retirement fund based on how much you have in debt service payments. So we are still levying 6.85 mils for next year. We're spending down the fund balance a little bit in that debt retirement fund. And this budget includes the most recent bond issue that we had for 2025 as a payment. That's the highlights of the 25-26 budget as it was included in your board packet. Does anybody have any additional questions that we may be able to answer for you tonight?
Not a question, but a comment, but I think the fund balance coming back down to 15 is appropriate. I mean, our policy has a floor, it doesn't have a ceiling, but we're not in the business of accumulating a ton of money there, so, right, so that's a balance, so that seems right. I mean, I'm not, those funds become available for helping kids or, paying our people, and.
They become available when the state doesn't make us whole for your state aid.
Yeah. Yeah, and you had warned us, I think, last year.
I feel like a broken record.
Yeah, you said there will be forces that will pull that back down, and so good, that feels right.
Our categorical revenue for that, for this year was almost $3.2 million, and our budget deficit is $3.1 million. So had we had that revenue in there, we would almost be balanced.
Yeah. I guess I was pleasantly surprised that the 3 state-level budget estimates for pupil funding are all very close.
There is one recommendation that is at the House, and it's for an additional amount for the like it's a per pupil funding, but there is requirements that come with that would bump us up to, it's almost 12 grand, I believe. But it's an application process and then those requirements, so it could be a hit and miss on how that happens if that were to go through, but that funding isn't guaranteed. Like, it would cover us for 1 year, just like that 3.1 million that Paula had just mentioned, but this one is, you know, it's that volatile situation that we're in.
Yeah, without those budgets done in Lansing, it's always a little bit of a,
We're here by law to bring you a budget
Yeah.
to pass tonight, and here is this budget, but a lot of it will probably change over the summer on the revenue side, and even on the expense side.
well, the MEPSR's rumor thing is kind of weird.
It is,
It could be just a big lightning bolt, or it could just be stuff that just disappears because it's just so extreme. It just sounds like it would potentially blow a hole in things, so.
Yeah, it sounds like it didn't go over well, but it's hard to say. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what's gonna happen? I mean, look at what we looked at last year. Like, we had,
I had no idea that was
You know,
gonna come.
and then
so-
all of a sudden, we wake up the next morning and here's your budget, but there's no funding increase except for this 3.1 million, if it was that.
So it didn't get added to the base, but.
So,
Well, once again, we'd like to thank you for putting this budget together, all the work that went into it, in particular not knowing what your revenue is, so, I mean, that's really good work. Thank you. Thank you very much.
appreciate it.
Okay, we're now going to resume our regular meeting and go to the superintendent's report, please.
Thank you, Randy. The 2 items on this report is, the first is our bond project update, and Randy Edwards will be giving his last report as assistant superintendent.
Or we're gonna hold this one until they're mentioned. Oh. No, you're okay, you're okay. Good evening, thank you Superintendent B. Lang, as well as members of the Portage Public Schools Board of Education. Want to give an update related to our bond project work. Starting at Central Elementary School, our demolition is progressing on schedule. If you've driven past the site, you will see that the building has physically gone. There are still some material on site that are being cleaned out. The plan is to have the demolition portion completed by Thursday of this week. There may be a need on Monday to do some minor touch-up items. As of today, all the landfill material has been hauled off-site. Hauling up the recycled materials like concrete and steel is ongoing, and some areas of the site have been turned over to our parking lot vendor, who's responsible for installing the parking lot. On the inside of the building, the new school, the contractors are working on their punch list items. They're working on the fire alarm, elevator, doors and hardware, carpeting the gathering store, stairs, casework in the libraries and art room, polishing floors. On the exterior, they're working on the grading and site work, topsoil, as well as exterior doors. Moving over to Haverhill, the contractors are on their punch list items similar, but they're working on touching up the paint, doors and hardware, sound panels are still being installed, drywall, and they're finishing the vestibule entrance. And then now they're painting the gym floor. On the exterior, they're working on the concrete site work as well as the playground. Then the last area is just moving over to Woodland. The Woodland site has the construction fence all around its area. All of the abatement in the building that's above ground has been completed. Demolition equipment will be mobilized starting on Wednesday of this week, and demolition is scheduled to begin on Monday of next week. So that concludes my portion of the bond update, and I'll be happy to answer any questions for the board.
Glad to hear everything's moving along and on schedule. That's great.
Moving on and
Moving pieces.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny. And our second report, Dr. Pasco is going to handle, and that's match law report as required by law.
Good evening, Superintendent, trustees. It's the time of year we present on the bullying data for 24-25 school year and take a look back how it compares to the previous year in 23-24. In your packet, you've got more than what's being presented tonight. You have a bunch of definitions, some of our strategies that we use in terms of anti-bullying. But our definition, we look at the repetitive nature of things, the intent to hurt a person or a group by another person or group, where the relationship involves like an imbalance of power. So it can be physical, verbal, psychological. We see it in person or we see it online, which you know as cyberbullying. So that's how we look at it in our schools. All this data within the report, that's extracted from our administrative teams and Janet Johnstone in our office. So the last page of your report, you'll find that comparison chart that I have up here, comparing 24-25 to 23-24. You'll notice right away the number's the same. So it's just the way it shook out. It was 151 and 151. I asked Janet to go back and double check it 2 or 3 times. She did. And it's just the way the numbers were reported. So you see some similarities on the left, but you'll see some differences in terms of how it fell by grade level. So at the top of the table, you see what was reported at each level. You look at the disposition that the schools took and the total number of referrals on that far right. So we see the number of 150 referrals as the same as last school year. There was an increase of 12 referrals at elementary, but we saw a little bit of a dip and reduction at both middle school and high school. We typically see males engage in this behavior a little more than females as usual. And most frequency this time around is between that grades 6th through 10th, and similar to 23-24. Our largest increases were at 3rd and 7th grade, but we also saw some pretty solid decreases at 8th and 9th grade. Of the 106, or we see that the 106 of the 151 offenses resulted in some type of suspension. So whether that would be in school or out of school, we saw a lower number of out of school, which is good, versus in school, 48 versus 58. And then lastly, the 151 referrals that was committed by 123 students collectively. So we do have repeat offenders throughout the school year as we have in the past. So those are the numbers. More importantly, what are we doing or what do we continue to do about it? Our anti-bullying strategies. So we continue to strengthen our PBIS models, okay, reinforce expectations. Our principals are going into classrooms and the grade levels. They're talking about the acts of misconduct. They're talking about some of the inappropriate language that's being used, whether it's something that's from TikTok or social media that kids may not know how impactful it is or hurtful to another student. So they're specifically addressing those, and they're also talking about the aligned consequences. Particularly at our middle school, that's happening a lot, and it does happen in our high schools. Our continuous improvement goals is improving Tier 1 instruction, but also a big focus on improving the culture and climate of each of our school communities. Our multi-systems of support addresses both academics and behavior. We're engaging more in restorative practices, and you see that through folks like Daryl, who came to the board meeting at North Middle. So we have our behavior interventionists at the secondary level. Our ESs also help with this. So they have the time to commit to meeting one-on-one with students, but also doing some restorative circles. So having kids take ownership of their actions, some accountability, and kind of acknowledge the impact that their actions have on others. So that's what they're doing in those roles on a day-to-day, and that's making a difference. As you know, we have therapists connected to each of our school buildings for students to go to if they need to have a conversation with someone. We have partnered with Griffin Place and continue to partner with them. We've even done a restorative practice or two with some adults in our families. So they've been helpful in some of those situations when we just can't find some common ground internally. ESI does some cognitive behavior therapy, particularly at the high school. That's kind of like helping manage mental health conditions, how we cope with things. And so I've been able to watch one or two of those live over the years. So I know Ann and her team continue to do that at the high school level. Trauma informed is really just understanding what our kids may be coming through with every single day, understanding some dynamics that may be on the home fronts and some of the environments in which kids are coming from. So we continue to do that. Over the last couple of years, you've probably heard of ERACE training, so the anti-bias, anti-racism training. We did that as we were looking at some of the new ELA curriculum. We also just offered that during our professional learning opportunities throughout this past year. You've heard about CSTAG in my safety presentation in closed session. That's also being able to identify things early that may lead to that progression or that continuous or repetitive nature of things that may lead to bullying. So that's been helpful. On evenings and weekends, we continue to get calls from OK to Say. We follow up with our SROs and our principals and our families to check on our students when those come through. The implementation of new ELA curriculum, obviously the textual resources and some of the lessons are kind of broadening our scope in terms of kind of the more mindfulness around cultures and where our students may be coming from, different backgrounds and appreciation around that, so that's been very helpful. And then this year we implemented light speed alerts, which is kind of flagging our internal suites, whether kids are messaging one another, whether it's about harmful behavior or things that may lead to some type of threat or any bullying nature. It's been very helpful to look into those and connect with families just so that they can increase some awareness as to what may be going on with their child. So all those things and more that's in the packet, those are all things we feel are making an impact. We'll continue to have those in motion and implement those in the upcoming years. And hopefully we'll be able to see the numbers kind of go down maybe in the next little bit of time. So that's just a quick update as to where we fell in terms of Matt's Law. I'd be happy to take any questions or hear any comments that you may have.
I just have a question on the chart. It says detention, ISS, OSS, and other. What's other?
So other may just be maybe a conversation or a restorative circle with admin, with counselors, with our behavior specialists. So maybe somebody that doesn't lead to somebody that would be accounted for in terms of like a disciplinary consequence.
Okay. And then
Maybe then that's probably determined by or predicated on the level of, the situation.
does the student go back to the classroom following that kind of a conversation if that?
I guess it depends. I think the schools have enough expertise to determine when it's appropriate and when they're ready to re-enter.
Good.
Michael, you've got the 2-year trend in here, but I forget, going back to right post-pandemic, we find that there was a lot more, and the kids came back in person. I'm trying to remember, I'm a little embarrassed, I can't recall the number, but like what like a 5-year or 4 or 5 year?
I can't recall either, honestly, off the top of my head. I'd have to look back, and maybe in some of the future reports we can go back a little bit, or I'll just make a note as to how we've been maybe over the last 3 to 5 years versus the last 2. We know we had challenges coming back from the pandemic in terms of kids struggling with some mental health and just re-entering into the day-to-day in-person teaching and learning. So I wouldn't be surprised if we look back and there was maybe a little bit of spike when we returned.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was this data, but some of that data that you presented to us over the years, yeah, there was a...
Yeah, it may not have been directly related to bullying, but there was more aggressive behavior and more disruptive behavior, a few more fights, just students not knowing how to engage with one another.
Yeah, I'm sure maybe if we looked at the due process numbers, we might have had a tick up maybe for those first couple of years. So.
We appreciate the report and all the data you provide us with, and I think we're all very pleased that you stay on top of this with the latest developments in the bullying world. I mean, that's great for our district and our families. Thanks for your report.
Thank you.
That's it on the reports.
Okay, we'll move to our comments and communications section. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board this evening? Any comments from board trustees? Well, okay then. Oh, you got
Are we
one?
going to wait on certain platitudes until later in the meeting?
Yes.
That's what I assumed.
All right.
There's a sheet of paper at your desk. I don't know if you've seen this. You gotta
Had to.
find that one. Yeah, that'll be the platitude. Yeah. Okay, then, if no one has any comments, we'll move to the consent agenda. We have 6 items on that. Number 1 is approval of the minutes from the June 16, 2025 Committee of the Whole work session and closed session. Number 2 is to approve the purchase of 8 video surveillance servers from Dell Technologies in an amount not to exceed $175,000, the funds for which will come from the 2023 bond fund. Number 3, approve the purchase of uninterruptible power supplies from Vector Tech Group in an amount not to exceed $57,150, the funds for which will come from the 2023 bond fund. Number 4, to approve the purchase of musical instruments for band, orchestra, choir, and elementary music classrooms as presented for a total of $369,576, the funds for which will come from the 2019 unallocated contingency bond fund. Number 5, approve the purchase of equipment for the technical and applied science classrooms at Central, North, and West Middle Schools as presented for a total cost of $30,315, the funds for which will come from the 2019 unallocated contingency bond fund. And then finally, to approve the revision to bylaws 0131.1 and 0166.1.
Did you mention that one? Number 4.
I did.
Oh, I missed it, sorry. Not trying to do your job.
We can do it again.
No,
if you
no,
want
no.
to hear it.
I must have drew a blank during that.
Gotta focus on the meeting, Mark. Policy 1.0, executive limitations 2.10, and sheet G of the superintendent's annual evaluation instrument as presented. All of these items were discussed at our last meeting and at several retreats. Are there any exceptions to the consent agenda as presented? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. And now we have to go all the way to page 37. We have a required action item to approve the amended budget appropriations resolutions for 24-25.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the resolutions for the General Fund, Debt Retirement Fund, Building and Site Seeking Fund, and School Service Funds budgets for the 2024 through 2025 year as presented.
Thank you, Kimberly. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The amended budget resolutions for 24-25 are approved. Our second required action item is to approve the 25-26 budget resolutions on page 54.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the resolutions for the General Fund, Debt Retirement Fund, Building and Site Sinking Fund, and School Services Funds budget for 2025-26 as presented.
Thank you, Mark. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The 25-26 budget resolutions are approved. Thank you. And now we need to go to page 69. Another required action item to approve the 2025 tax rates. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution to set 2025 tax rates for summer and winter taxes as presented.
Thank you, Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the tax rates, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion is passed and the 2025 tax rates are set. Our next action item is to approve the resolution to submit bond proposal. And there's a motion on page 72.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution to submit school improvement bond proposition for the November 4, 2025 election as presented.
Thank you, Bo. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, and we do have some discussion this evening.
I'm going to do a shortened or abbreviated version of a presentation that I did for the board on May 19th. We talked about the KPS construction history. We talked about phase 3 progress, what has changed, and some proposed next steps. Just moving forward, I want to remind the board and our community what's underway. Central Elementary School is under construction at this moment. The plan is for the school to open this fall, in a couple of months. Should start a countdown calendar or clock now, because it is rapidly approaching. Also, Haverhill Elementary School will also open in the fall of 2025. This summer, Woodland Elementary construction begins. As I mentioned, the demo process will start as early as next week. It's approximately 2 years to build a new school of this size. This will also open in the fall of 2027. So 2 years or 2 summers from now, we should be looking near the completion. Our remaining projects is Anglin Road Elementary School, Amberley Elementary School. Morse Bridge is a renovation, not a new build. And then we also must address solutions for PCEC, which houses our Curious Kids or early childhood education. And it also, on the other side, houses Community High School. So what has changed? The board heard a presentation from Lindsay French about the movement to early childhood education and that shift that's happening statewide. Also, the state's push for pre-kindergarten for all, as well as collaboration with GSRP. Also with the PCEC building, its building is approximately 74 years of age. It's beyond its expected useful life cycle, and we've done a number of repairs. This summer, we have begun work as putting in a new boiler and a roof repair, and that's to buy us at least 6 to 7 more years at most. Here's a quick slide that shows the construction cost increase over the past 5.5 years or 5 years and a quarter. That includes March of 2020, the onset of the pandemic. And you'll see K-12 construction has risen to nearly 30%. At the same time, I just want to look at buses, what a 77 passenger bus cost in 2018 and what it costs today, from $83,000 to $137,000. And then in the third or fourth column, a lift bus was $100,000 in 2018. Now it's $160,000. So what I did in that 3% inflation column, I said, if a normal 3% inflation occurred over the past 7 years, we would anticipate that a 77 passenger bus today should cost us approximately $103,000. But its actual is $137,000, and the lift bus approximate cost today, if we had a normal 3% rate of inflation of $124,000 or $25,000, we're now paying $160,000, close to $161,000. And this is a chart that shows that projection of the 3% rate in the dotted lines versus the actual rate in the solid lines for both the 77 passenger in orange and the lift bus in blue. So over the past 7 years, our costs have gone up for a 77 passenger bus at 64%, and the lift buses have gone up 59% over the last 7 years. That being said, as the resolution that the board is looking at tonight, the recommendation is to proceed with a $132.4 million bond. That is not an increase to our taxes at all. This would allow us to complete our remaining projects combined with our remaining 2021 bond funds. In addition to the buildings that I talked about with Anglin Road replacement, Amberley's replacement, those schools on site, renovation to Morris Bridge, we also need to address solutions for the PCEC building. And in some fashion or form, we need to address early childhood education, community high, potentially the admin building. In addition to those things, buses and technology, and we've seen how the cost of construction and the cost of buses have gone up. So this is a projected timeline. We've engaged the staff at Amberley, Anglin, and Morris Bridge with the help of our partners, Tower, Pinkston, and Fielding International. Those engagement sessions were held in the spring of 2025. The presentation that I've done now is an abbreviated version of the same presentation, May 19th. The board resolution would either occur in June or July, and we're here today for June 30th. The bond vote would be November 4th, and then that would allow us to proceed with our project. So again, this is a high-level version of a presentation that I did a couple of months ago, or last month, I'm sorry. I just wanted to remind the board and the public of that presentation. And I'll be happy to answer any questions to help you with your discussion.
Do we have any plans for public education about this, or are those in the works, or what's the thought process there?
Those will be in the work. We're going to work with our planning for promotional marketing and community awareness. Tonight, if the board approves, we would like to send out a press release to the news outlets, which is one of our primary sources of information. And also that press release will go out to our staff as well. It's a little quiet over the summer, so we've started to work with Rick Chambers, who's done some consulting work with our branding in the past. So we're working on taglines and supplemental work that would go along with, that would mirror some of the strategies we've used in the past. One of our primary advantages I would say we have this time around is we will have physically 2 new buildings available for our public to see and visit. And I believe as we talk about our open houses and ribbon cuttings in the fall, those would be other opportunities for people to come on site, see the great work. And while Woodlands construction is undergoing, we have those great visuals for people to see those. But the marketing plan is not finalized. We've just talked conceptually about some of our ideas. We want to hit the ground running August, September for public awareness.
Great. Sounds like you're on the right track. Good.
The timing of the communications sneak up on us. Because absentee ballots go up 40 days before the election, so that's the last week of September. So it's like the school year starts, then all of a sudden, bam,
That's
it's
correct.
right there. And I think the message here is it's really solid. It's compelling. I mean, and you made a great point. I mean, the other issue now that we're 2 buildings in is it's equity. And let's get the whole district up to this standard, and let's get the kids and the staffs in these buildings, let's get them in AC, and with all the other benefits that the new buildings bring, but, so, looking forward to that. And then, I mean, and just underscoring that the millage rate stays the same. So we're in a good position with that.
Absolutely.
I think 2 things stand out to me. First of all, this is the community's decision, and sending a question to the community is, in my mind, always a good thing. But I also look at community high and community kids with PCEC, and that is beyond well needed. And I look at the amazing things that are done to provide supports for students who don't learn in a traditional way, and to see all that they're doing without the facilities that they deserve. Excites me to see what they might be able to do with the better facilities and with the better opportunities to really encourage those students and really do the amazing work they do, even more amazingly.
And same for our early childhood education, Curious Kids program. They offer great programs, as Lindsay spoke about. And when we get feedback from our families, they all say, I love the program, and I can't wait till we're able to address that building in some way. So it's definitely a major need, and we're thankful to the board. We're thankful for our community for the Building and Site Sinking Fund as well. The patchwork on the roof is definitely needed. Typically, when there's hard rain, I can almost anticipate there's going to be a need for buckets in the hallway and to replace ceiling tile.
Yeah, I would just say as a trustee, it's really easy to support this because I think the community is really on board with this, so.
Yeah, the community was real clear. They wanted no elementary schools, and that was our intention to do that. And it's unfortunate we got hit with the inflation that we did, and we're unable to do it with funds from the 2021 bond. But now to be able to keep our promise and not have to raise taxes, I think that's a good thing, and I think the community will appreciate it. So thank you. It's a very solid proposal. Any other comments? Okay then. All those in favor of approving the resolution to submit the bond proposal, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes, and the resolution to submit the bond proposal is approved. Our next action item is administrative contract extension. Mark?
So this is an action that the board customarily takes at this time of the year as we enter into the next fiscal year. So you have these contracts are due to expire a year from now, and with your approval, these will be extended for another year for the 31 administrators listed there. You had already approved 2 that are not listed, Ann Gordon and Lindsay French previously, so we recommend that that group be extended, and right now we're asking for step increases for those that are eligible to increase steps, and I'm sure once the other contracts get settled that there may be adjustment being requested at that time, but right now it's just asking for step increases in the aggregate. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Something we do every year. Thank you. Thank you. Any comments, questions? Very good. Is there a motion, please, on page 78?
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent to issue administrator contract extensions as presented, not to exceed beyond June 30th, 2007, and with additional compensation in the aggregate as approved by the board as part of the initial 2025-2026 budget.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the administrative contract extensions, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The administrative contract extensions are approved. We move now to our third action item, which is the agreement between Portage Public Schools and West Portage Little League. Mark?
Yes, so we thought we had this agreement in place back when we first developed it in 2014, but we could not find any record of it ever being executed by the two parties. So things have gone very well. I mean, we have a very good relation with West Portage Little League. Marty Phelps and I met with the current director of West Portage Little League. We used the existing, what we thought was the existing agreement, and made some slight modifications to address some of the concerns that have been raised over the years. And so what you have before you is the agreement that we came up with. Both parties feel that it's a fair agreement, and you should be getting some annual reports, at least through the administration should be getting some reports on the usage of those fields, any upgrades that have been done during the previous year, and maybe what plans are for the subsequent year. So that's some built-in reporting that should have been happening that wasn't, but hopefully this fall we'll start a new gathering of information, reporting out to the board if you want to hear how they're doing. So I think everyone was in agreement. Ben Kirby is the director there, and he worked with us hand in hand, and in making sure we got this right, so happy to present it to you for your approval.
Yeah, this goes back a long ways. It goes back to trustee Joanne Wilson. Really wanted this put together, and
It did, I remember that, yes.
I think she'd
Very
be
clear.
surprised to know it never was approved, so, yeah, she was a big proponent of this, so, that's great, it's getting cleaned up, super. Any comments? Okay, then, there's a motion on page 81.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the agreement between Portage Public Schools and West Portage Little League as presented.
Thank you, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the agreement between Portage Public Schools and West Portage Little League, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes, the agreement is approved. Our next action item is to approve the superintendent contract, and that's on page 87. There is a revised contract at your place, where a change was made early today to paragraph 12, section 12, regarding medical benefit plans. After further checking, it appeared that what was in the original contract from Troon would have taken away some benefits that we currently offer, like funding the HSA, approving a phone stipend, and the big thing is keeping the benefits consistent with other administrators. So that was a change in the contract today. It's a live document, you never know. There is a motion on page 87 to approve the contract.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the superintendent contract of employment with Johnny Edwards for a 3-year period, July 1st, 2025, and ending on June 30th, 2028, as presented.
Thank you, Mark. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Any discussion?
Glad to be here with this.
Yes. Glad to be at this point, that's for sure. All those in favor of approving the superintendent's contract, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes, the contract is approved. Our next action, is that right? Our next action item, yes, is number 5, the retiree proclamation. There is a motion on page 98.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the 2024-25 retiree proclamation as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Terry. Would someone like to read the proclamation?
Sure. Proclamation, recognition, and commendation for retiring employees. Whereas the following certified and classified employees have announced their intention to retire from Portage Public Schools, namely Mark B. Lang, Janine Matson Gerhardt, and Chris Riker. Whereas they have faithfully served and supported the students and staff of this community, and whereas they supported great teaching and great learning in classrooms, and whereas they took phone calls or answered email at all hours of the day, and whereas appropriate recognition of their dedicated and devoted service shall come to the attention of the entire community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Portage Public Schools takes great pleasure in recognizing the contributions of these administrators and expresses its sincere gratitude for their contributions to Portage Public Schools, and further wishes them a healthy, happy, and rewarding retirement. Proclaimed this 30th day of June 2025, Portage Public Schools Board of Education.
Thank you, Terry. Any comments? Well, I'd just like to make one about Dr. Janine Matson Gerhardt. She kept her retirement a secret for quite a while. Nobody was supposed to know. And I can remember, well, a number of us were on the board in 2015 when she was promoted to her position. And I just wanted to highlight that the department has evolved a lot since she took over that department. It was the special ed department, and it's now the Department of Educational Supports and Intervention, and includes a lot of things that it did not before. school and health initiatives, mental health initiatives, academic supports, and she was a big part of building that and putting that all together, and I just wanted to recognize her. Any other comments?
Well, I'll make a comment about Chris Riker, because I'm probably the only person, maybe Mark, had Chris as a
My
coach.
soccer coach, his first
Yes.
year here was my senior year, so.
We had
Time
him
ago.
as a soccer coach as well. Did not have him as a classroom teacher, but no, he spent a number of years as a classroom teacher before becoming the athletic director. I think he's done a remarkable job leading athletics at Portage Northern, especially the addition of all the new fields and all of those things, but also just some introductions of new sports, budgeting, all kinds of things. And he was very visible, even at minor sports. We saw him there in person, and I know that means a lot to the kids on those teams that don't always necessarily get a lot of recognition. So thanks to Chris.
Thank you, Terry. Anyone else?
Just to echo thanks and appreciation to these three individuals.
And Mark, too. All those in favor of approving the retiree proclamation, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The retiree proclamation passes, and we're now moving to item 6 on our agenda, which was added, which is the resolution in recognition and appreciation of distinguished service by Mark Beeline. You find a copy at your place, a marked-up copy, and I thought it'd be unfair if one person read this document, so we thought we would share the responsibilities. And I'll begin. Whereas Mark Beeline began his service to Portage Public Schools as superintendent in 2013 and has served in that role with distinction. Whereas Mark repaired the governance of the district by practicing policy governance with fidelity and adopting district-wide policies to uphold the highest standards of teaching and learning while fostering a safe and effective school environment.
Whereas Mark engaged with the community and facilitated the two largest bond proposals in district history. The first in 2015, $145 million, constructed 2 new middle schools and auditoriums at the 2 high school campuses and new stadiums and athletic facilities at each high school. The second in 2021, $175 million, began the replacement of the 5 oldest elementary schools and other aging facilities.
Whereas Mark led the district through the uncertainties of the pandemic in 2020-21 by making instructional alternatives available to meet the needs of students and families and returning to in-person learning as soon as law permitted.
Whereas Mark facilitated the district values team and developed strategic commitments and the commitment to equity as the foundation for future growth.
Whereas Mark was awarded the prestigious WMU Golden Apple Award in 2021 for his accomplishments as a school leader, and most recently, he was awarded the Difference Maker Award by the Huron Consulting Group for his steady leadership and commitment to continuous improvement. His national educational presence has brought recognition to the district.
Whereas Mark has approached his work with the heart of a leader, as he worked tirelessly to make Portage Public Schools the best place for students to learn, teachers to teach, staff to work, and for parents to send their children to receive a high-quality education. From his early days as a leader, he has listened to students to better understand their needs and has helped PPS to serve every student, every future.
Now therefore it be resolved that the Portage Public Schools Board of Education acknowledge and sends its gratitude to Mark Beeline for his distinguished service and contributions to the district, staff, students, community, and to the Board of Education. And even though Mr. Beeline enjoys public comment, he will never be subjected to it again.
Did it really say that, or did you just add that?
Be it further resolved that this resolution is saved in the permanent minutes of the Portage Public Schools Board of Education, and a copy is given to Mark Beeline. Adopted on this 30th day of June 2025 by Portage Schools Board of Education. Is there a motion, please, to approve this resolution?
I move, Mr. President, that we approve this resolution.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Is there a
Second.
Thank you, Terry. All those in favor of approving the resolution, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. That's good, that's good. Thank you, Mark, for everything.
Thank you for that.
Yes, and
Would you
you,
like this now?
yes, we have gifts to present to you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, gifts.
And the card's on the gift.
And the card's on the gift.
Okay. Do I have to open this now, or can I wait till later?
You can wait till later.
Thank
You
you.
can wait till later.
I like the box.
Yeah, where did you come up with the Cubs thing? That's,
I have
as
lots
a
of
Tigers fan,
resources.
yeah.
Well, I consulted with someone before I wrapped it in that to make sure that it was okay.
It's fine, it's fine. Well, thank you. If I may, just, I don't have any prepared comments or anything. I was totally unexpected, so thank you very much. You know, it seems like not that long ago that we sat in this room, and not all of you, but a couple of you sat in this room and were part of the interview process in 2013 when I came on board. And so I still have some eerie feelings about this room. Yeah, it's, you know, you come into these roles, you just never know what to expect or how, you know, how long you're going to last, how long you're going to want to last. But, you know, it turned out it was just really a great fit for, you know, for the board and for myself. And we were able to, during that time, you know, assemble teams of individuals that really got the job done, you know, especially I think around the bond issues that we were able to pass, and getting the right resources here in the district to make that happen, to facilitate the important discussions that happened at that time. You know, I think was a key thing. You know, I remember the board giving me time to do an entry plan. I had a 90-day entry plan as well, and reported out to the board. And I think at that time, the three things that were really out there were, you know, looking at maintaining the high rigor that exists in the district around student success. There were some culture issues that we needed to work on. And then, you know, the kind of my experience with policy governance that was brought into the district. And then very quickly after that it was obvious that we needed the facilities. So that became, you know, an additional kind of a fourth area. And in one way or another, all those things became part of our strategic commitments, the 4 pillars that we have there. And you know, I think one of those pillars around culture that allows us to continue our work with curriculum and addressing the needs of our students is the partnership that we had with Studer Education. I mean, that was really, in my mind, you know, a partnership that really took us to the next level with getting some tools and strategies that our administrators can use out in the district to bring people together, student surveys, staff surveys, community surveys that give us some data on what we can do to improve what we do in the district in our building by building. So I think we're, you know, those were some key things that I think really helped us out. I also remember Randy coming to me saying, at one point saying, you know, we really would like you to stick around, or at least he's speaking maybe for himself, you know, until we celebrate our centennial. And at that, when he first came to me, it was like, oh my God, that's so far away. And so it's like, all right, let's see what happens. I'm not making any promises. And then COVID hits. And it was like, I was not going to get defeated by COVID. I mean, I know we as a board and as a community went through some tough times during COVID. Remember some of those board meetings that we had at Portage Northern in the auditorium, but you know, I'm convinced we did the right things for kids, trying to find a balance that worked for this community, and we got through it, and we celebrated our centennial and had a nice logo that we created for using for that, and now we're transitioning into the next step. So it's been a great ride. I really appreciate the support that I've gotten from the community, from the board, the executive team, and all the staff members, no matter what role they hold in the district. Everyone has a key part in making things right for kids, and it's not one person doing it, it's a collective effort on the part of many. So thank you for your support in all of that. And I know Johnny's going to transition into this role without missing a beat. I hope you give him the same patience and consideration as he implements his plan for entry. I know he's already started with a lot of one-on-one interviews and discussions. And I think he'll find, like I did, that this is just a great place to be, and for me, a great place to finish a career. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
All right.
All right, our next action item is to execute the superintendent's contract, and we're going to do that over at the podium. Yeah, they're right here, yeah. So we have two copies of the agreement, an original for Johnny and the original for the district, and Johnny is going to sign first.
You have time to read it?
You want to keep Marcus till midnight hour, right?
By the way.
6:30.
Very good.
The wood makes it a little difficult to sign.
Yeah.
so.
We ought to get that sanded, you know.
Yes, yes. We have a program for that too.
And Terry, you can attest to the signatures.
Okay.
Congratulations, Johnny.
Thank you.
That's yours.
Seems like we should have a gavel or something.
Okay, Mark, we still got you to 11:59 PM.
Let's hope it's not in this room.
That's a thought.
Okay, Mark, we'll let you present one more discussion item, okay?
All right. So you've got two policies that are being revised. They're not being changed in intent, but we wanted to get some language cleaned up to reflect what our current practices are and to reduce some redundancies in the language. So these two policies, one is on the around suspension, expulsion of students, and the other is around due process. The way they were worded before was just a little clunky, and there were a little bit of discrepancy between what it said in one policy and what it said in the other. So we're not changing anything we're doing, we're just cleaning up the language in this. And so if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I'd appreciate it if you move it to action items so that we can get this off the plate so that Johnny doesn't have to deal with it moving forward.
Well, to your credit, over the last couple of months, you've been doing a lot of work like this, cleaning things up.
Well, yes, straightening things out.
Straightening things
Not-
out.
Not so much, we're just tying up loose ends.
Yeah, they're
It wasn't
clean,
really-
you're just
yeah, they're already
straightening.
clean, yeah, we're just straightening. It's like when I reorganize my closet all the time. Everything in there is clean, but it just gets reorganized.
Gotcha.
All right.
Gotcha.
Good for you for doing that.
Any discussion? It's pretty cut and dried, and it's what we do now, so it just cleans up the language, which is a good thing. So there's a motion on page 100 to move this item to action, please.
Mr. President, I move that we move this discussion item, revisions to operational policies 5610 and 5611 to action.
Thank you. Very good. All those in favor of moving this item to action, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion is to approve it now.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the revisions as presented to Operational Policy 5610, Emergency Removal, Suspension, and Expulsion of Students, and Operational Policy 5611, Due Process Rights.
Thank you, Kimberly. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving revisions to operational policies 5610 and 5611, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. You still got it, Mark. You got her done.
Got it.
And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Still got 4 hours left for any follow-up work here.
I gave my keys away. I think probably my access has been denied.